It is it is good to see all of you here today. Uh, I'm just going to jump into it this morning. I really don't have anything to announce other than Bible school is going to start in just a few weeks. All of the cards were taken, so hopefully all those kids that were invited show up. If you signed up to bring stuff for Bible school, just have it here before Bible school. But today we are going to be in the book of Galatians. So it's right there in the New Testament, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, uh, uh, Colossians. So go eat popcorn. Okay. All right, it took a while. Okay, so all right. So, anyways, back in the 1900s when I was growing up, it was before cell phones. It was before game consoles. One of the most magical toys I had growing up was a toy called Stretch Armstrong. Some of you remember that. Second service, most of the people there are not going to remember Stretch Armstrong. But I had Stretch Armstrong. He was this jacked, blonde-haired, like goo-filled guy. And I remember the commercial said you could stretch him, you could bend him, you could even tie him in knots. And you could take Stretch Armstrong and you could pull his limbs 2, sometimes even 3 feet out, and eventually he would kind of go back to his normal shape. And so to a elementary school kid growing up in the 1900s, like this was science fiction to me. Like it was so amazing that this could happen. And so my brother and I each had a Stretch Armstrong. And however, my brother and I did not use Stretch Armstrong the way I think that the manufacturer intended Stretch Armstrong to be used. And so what would happen is my brother and I would each grab an arm and a leg on Stretch Armstrong, and we would scream and we would grit our teeth and we would dig our heels in, and we would just try to see how far we could stretch Armstrong. Spoiler alert. If you stretched him too far, too long, he would spring a leak. And then that old gooey, sticky stuff would shoot out of him. And trust me, Mom was never happy when that happened. And so Stretch Armstrong, though, at that point in my life was teaching me a very valuable lesson that I didn't even realize until I got much older in my life. And it's a very important principle that I think maybe if you're here and you're old enough, you understand this as well, is that within every single one of us, we have these forces within us that seem to be pulling us in different directions, right? We have one nature within us. We have the sinful nature in us that is pulling us one direction, and we have a spiritual component, a spiritual nature within us that's pulling us in the opposite direction. And sometimes we feel like Stretch Armstrong, and we're just being pulled by these two desires, these two forces in our life in opposite directions. And sometimes the pull of these desires seems so great that we think eventually we're going to spring a leak. And this is true for all of us, I think. If you're here and you're a follower of Jesus, you're a believer in Jesus Christ, we have these competing natures in our life, and it's not unique to believers who live in the 21st century. The Apostle Paul experienced the same tension, the same pull in his life as well. In Romans chapter 7, Paul wrote these words. He said, "There are times that inside of me, I want to do what's right, but I don't do what's right. And there's times in me where I don't want to do what's not right, and I find myself doing the things that are not right." And Paul was exasperated in his life, and he said, "Who can deliver me from all of this that is going on in my life?" And there are times in my life when I don't want to be selfish, but I find myself being selfish. There's times in which I want to just kind of tamp down the jealousy that is springing up in my heart. Oftentimes I become jealous. I definitely don't want to lose my temper, but oftentimes I find myself getting angry. And I feel this tension that is in me where I want to always do it. And there's times that I don't want to do what's wrong, but I find myself doing it. So we're going to address this because there is a very important principle that you and I are going to learn today. And it's just simply this, is that you choose who will win the battle within. We don't have to be like Stretch Armstrong and feel this pull and this tug in two different directions. You and I actually get to choose who wins this battle that is being waged within us. We can decide if it's going to be the sinful nature that wins or if it's going to be the spiritual nature that wins as they compete for our attention and for our desires in this life. And so this is a message that is continuing our series entitled I Choose, in which we are talking about things in our life that we actually ultimately get to choose. And you and I understand that today we are a product of the choice past. And tomorrow and into the future, we are going to be the product of the decisions and the choices that we make today. That all of us ultimately come to crossroads in our life at one point, and we have to choose which direction we're going to go. And whichever direction that we choose to go is going to determine where we end up in our life. And so our memory verse for this series comes from Proverbs chapter 22, verse 1, which tells us a good name is to be more desired that associated with integrity and character and faith, that we don't just simply drift into becoming those types of people, that we actually choose our way into becoming those types of people in our life. I ultimately get to choose what our name is going to be, and choosing that good name, a person of faith and integrity and character, is better than great wealth.